Hi, welcome to On Air. I'm Klara Syrewicz. Digital bureaucracy. What a gift. No more carrying around your driver's license, boarding pass or prescriptions. Just flash your phone like it's a sacred relic. But what happens when there's a breach and sensitive data falls into the wrong hands? Or worse, when the state decides to use it against the opposition? That's our story today. Things that seem boring and have boring names are often the place where power resides. The world of data storage isn't exactly sexy, but knowledge equals control. And in the age of AI, control over massive data sets looks a lot like absolutism. The stakes are far from theoretical. The black market for stolen data now dwarfs the global drug trade. This isn't just compromised information, it's a weapon enabling extortion, fraudulent billing, identity theft and abuse. And the victims can include children whose data, especially sensitive records on family or health, makes them more vulnerable to grooming and coercion by sexual predators. In 2024, Russian hackers released the personal details of Ukrainian military personnel through Project Nemesis, a doxing campaign that unleashed thousands of death and rape threats, targeting their families, even relatives already held in captivity. Similarly, 2 years earlier, 33,000 Finnish psychotherapy patients saw transcripts of their most intimate traumas, suicide attempts, child abuse and sexual proclivities, dumped onto the dark web after a hacker held their records to ransom. Though the hacker was arrested 2 years later, one victim recounted that
people on the dark web were mocking patients' misery. A 10-year-old child had gone to therapy and people found it funny.
In Europe, we indulge in the comforting fantasy of some Wanda von der Leyen, no-touchy data blue shield, a belief that stringent rules keep our data sacrosanct. But reality is more disappointing. First, there's only so much the Commission can do to enforce EU laws, and Brussels frequently finds itself outmatched by uncooperative digital behemoths. And second, the local industry also complains that restrictions on data sharing are impeding European innovation. While Europe predominantly relies on US-based technology, the Trump administration has become extremely hostile to those EU rules, calling them censorship, and even banning the architect of the Digital Services Act, Thierry Breton, from entering the US. Cut to the digital Omnibus package, a recent proposal intended to fix the AI Act, the General Data Protection Regulation, cookie policies and cybersecurity, all in one fell swoop. While it looks impressive on paper, critics argue it prioritizes industrial AI growth and opens a backdoor to uncontrolled use of our most intimate data. To understand the risks, look at the most intimate data of all, your health. Take your fitness tracker, a device that monitors your location, stress levels, and even knows whom you came into proximity with, just like a real stalker. Repeated investigations have shown that health gadget manufacturers accumulate way more information than they need for the features they claim to offer. Users don't know whom it will be shared with, how long it can be stored, or whether the company's privacy policy has changed overnight. And manufacturers like Google's Fitbit have been called out for forcing users into vague, one-sided terms and conditions. Now, in theory, EU health data obtained from such devices is subject to stricter processing rules. But even when it's anonymized, this is often a legal fiction. Let's say I open an account linked to my fitness tracker. I upload health stats, team contacts, chats, photos, locations. My name is anonymized, so in theory, I cannot be identified by the platform. And just like that, the protection evaporates. Because if a company knows everything about me except my name, it doesn't need my name. It can track me, spam me, try to sell me stuff, and leverage its knowledge of my health vulnerabilities however it likes. More concerning still, this information often travels to servers in the US, or if you're using Xiaomi or Huawei devices, to China. While US law requires data leaving the European Economic Area to obtain equal protection abroad, in practice this necessitates additional international agreements which either don't exist or have been scrapped under Trump. In response to those risks, France, for instance, mandated its medical data be stored exclusively within the EEA by certified providers. But even these secure arrangements prove imperfect. In Denmark, the government contracted a local firm, Ziver, to handle encrypted health communications, only to see it access them. Then the company was sold to a US firm with ties to Israeli intelligence, effectively giving 2 additional governments a front-row seat to Danish medical records. Now, considering Denmark has just put the US on an official list of security concerns, and given how American authorities currently weaponize personal data, even against their own citizens, worrying seems sensible. Recent travelers to the US will know what that means. Even law-abiding Canadians heading to America have had devices inspected for improper political opinions or been detained by ICE over prolonged periods for no apparent reason. Oh, but then you'll say, I've got nothing to hide. Who cares about some Instagram account? Sure, laugh it off. Your Instagram is fine, but your health data, including your sexual history or mental health, maybe not so funny. Are you routinely testing for STDs, but you're in a monogamous relationship? Or do your health screenings suggest a hidden alcohol issue? Tropical vaccinations hint at foreign travels you didn't report. You have any unaffordable medical bills? Your health and lifestyle choices are the holy grail of potential leverage and harassment. Now, who has access to that? In Europe, likely a US company, perhaps even the most alarming of US companies, Palantir. Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel, an almost cartoonishly sinister billionaire obsessed with immortality, like the actual desire to live forever, who named his company after the Dark Lord Sauron's spy stones from The Lord of the Rings and warned tech regulation could be the work of the Antichrist. Palantir and its CEO Alex Karp secured massive European contracts, notably with the UK's National Health Service. Tasked with contact tracing during the COVID-19 crisis and later with health platform integration, it received £330 million and a trove of data unfathomable in prior times, with hardly any adequate protection against misuse. Palantir also developed Gotham, a piece of software used to predict future perpetrators of crime and likened to a real-life Minority Report. This tool was sold to foreign intelligence and law enforcement agencies, including to Denmark, for terrorism forecasting, though its deployment in Germany was recently ruled unconstitutional. But human rights and profiling aside, given the volume of data Palantir can access, its exfiltration is also a real concern. Perhaps most famously, Palantir's surveillance technology is used by ICE, and it draws on the health records and disability status of millions of Americans to find and detain people targeted by the agency. The Trump administration's penchant for branding political opponents and protesters as domestic terrorists has led to concerns that Palantir would allow the president to compile a master list of personal information on Americans that could give him untold surveillance power, including the weaponization of personal data to punish critics. In the sci-fi comic series The Private Eye, a breach exposes all private data, driving people to retreat in fearful isolation or resort to wearing masks in public. This fictional example illustrates the problems posed by our shifting social contract. We surrender ever larger parts of our privacy in exchange for greater security and convenience. But how far are we willing to go? And what if it's turned against us? While stolen data powers criminal ecosystems, potential government misuse is equally alarming. The combination of recent leaps in computer and AI power, along with mass surveillance, mean we may be a single election away from a democratic government turning into a semi-authoritarian regime wielding tools straight out of science fiction. If Palantir grew exponentially during the COVID pandemic, another entity also took great advantage of the public health crisis: the Chinese state. Its imposition of an individualized tracking system collecting biometric and geolocation data became almost universal in scope, creating the foundation for permanent and total state surveillance. This is our window into what an autocratic future may look like.
We live in an age where privacy is both a memory and a luxury. Every click, every taxi ride, every like leaves a trace. But who's collecting our data? For what purpose? And can we even say no? London, one of the most monitored cities in the world, with the highest number of tracking devices per capita in Europe. Cameras record and archive your every move. Yet, most European countries give their citizens a measure of control regarding how much they can be monitored, with judicial checks and rights to oppose certain aspects of surveillance.
In the EU, we are very concerned about protecting people's personal data. So we want to have a privacy-preserving system in place.
Existing EU regulations give people a choice. How much privacy are they willing to forfeit online? And governments, at least in theory, cannot transfer personal data to other countries without legal justification. We live in surveillance states, but not yet in a dystopia. The situation is different in China. London pales in comparison with Beijing, or even Hong Kong, where the number of cameras is counted in millions and surveillance is integrated with facial recognition systems and state databases. You're not just watched as you move. The system knows who you are in real time. And cameras are just the tip of the iceberg.
We began utilizing drones for patrols at the end of May. We have also implemented self-service kiosks for reporting crimes, allowing people to file reports without having to visit the counter. To combat fraud, we launched a fraud prevention app that individuals can download, serving as a first line of defense against potential fraud cases. Last year, we installed 615 surveillance cameras, and this year we plan to install 1,385 more.
In China, a person's life fits in their phone. Payment apps, digital ID, messengers, social media platforms. Everything belongs to an ecosystem monitored by the state.
Our phone is the most insecure thing that we have. You know, we walk around with it. Every app on our phone can listen to it, and we give it permission to listen to us.
China's internet is cut off from many global platforms, filtered, controlled. People have no choice but to put their lives online, allowing the system to observe and evaluate them. This model is completed by the social credit system, which awards individuals points for their online and in-person activities. While it's supposed to build trust, in practice it rewards obedience and punishes deviations. A low score may prevent you from buying a plane ticket, renting an apartment, or securing a loan. Even a violation as harmless as jaywalking can cost you points. The fundamental difference between the West and China is who has control over whom. In a democracy, the state collects our data, but there are mechanisms in place to limit abuse. We can criticize the authorities, ask questions, change the government. In China, the system is immutable and frighteningly efficient. With advances in AI, drones, and subliminal technology, this model of dictatorial surveillance will only tighten its grip.
By beginning, just one more gadget online might feel harmless, but it could be a step closer to the panopticon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.